Coin traders, what's going on? Looking at VeChain, VET on that ticker, the big VeChain for supply chain and all the chains. So right now, very nice day for VeChain, especially after smashing just a complete big resistance zone that was found after pulling back on this big FTX flush. So after a very big period of consolidation, continuation, and basically forming a higher or a resistance point at 2 cent psychological, broke, found our low, and now getting a little bit more of this parabolic formation. So let's actually flip over into the daily chart because I want to actually look at this pattern overall because a lot of good things going on with this overall chart. Now, especially since the current daily candle has been one of the biggest and bullish that we actually have seen for quite some time. And so like we mentioned, big resistance point for the close on the day up overhead, pretty much right at the 2 cent mark. So as long as we can still maintain a close and with only an hour left for the close, I think it's a little bit more likely that the bulls will be able to hold that, especially given the conditions of the rest of the market right now. So big point of closing support found right at 1.5 cents. So after that big run up right now, and especially after breaking this resistance point, that's an extremely good sign, making this new higher high for the trend. But we do still have to be extremely mindful that we are going to be expecting a pullback and a retracement at some point, just because these parabolic patterns are never sustainable. And also a lot of the indications are showing extreme overbought signals right now. So earlier over on Twitter made a tweet that we are eventually going to retrace and that it will be a pretty substantial flush over a short period of time. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to last out a very long time or go down to the previous lows that we saw right away. But we do know that a flush and a retracement is going to be found because we are going to have a test of some lower supports here coming soon. Also, the sentiment is getting too extreme bullishness right now in too short of a period, and that's pretty much what creates these type of parabolic moves. So these are the exact types of conditions that catch people completely off guard, and that's why we do get these flushes, because there is a lot of that panic because no one's expecting it because everyone's buying, and when the price just gets extremely euphoric like we're seeing right now and a lot of big parabolic action, that's when a lot of money starts flowing in. When we do get extremely overbought, that does create those mini bubble type effects. So we do know that at some point we're going to need here pretty soon a nice retracement test supports. So we are going to talk about supports here in a second. So if you're not currently following me over on Twitter, definitely make sure to go drop a follow. We have a lot of good discussions, put out a lot of charts, updates, things like that. At @coin_trades is the handle over there. Looking forward to chatting with you all over on Twitter. So flipping back over into the chart now, and let's actually flip over into the weekly because a lot of great things coming in for the week as well. So we have our big resistance point, which is found at weekly resistance as well. And so if we zoom in a little bit more on this chart, you can see that a couple great things are happening because in the current, not only did we break previous price high for resistance, but also we actually broke the previous resistance point for this 12-period EMA, which a lot of cryptos have been sitting beneath, showing that there is a very big trend to the downside. Now, as you can see, if we do zoom out and look at some of the previous trends for VeChain, we're actually looking at a lot of rejection in between the 26 and the 12 as well. So for example, after the low in June of last year, running up and then rejecting in August of last year in between this zone. So we actually did find a break, had a candle that could necessarily show that signs of follow through, and then ultimately ended up retracing and pretty much in this instance back tested a support level about right at 2.2 cents. So in the current weekly setup, this is pretty much what we're going to be looking at since we are breaking above a resistance point, but also now we are going to get stuck up in this pretty big resistance zone, basically up until about 2.4 cents, since this is going to be the big zone that does encompass and make up in between the 26-period EMA and also the 12-period EMA. Combine that with the previous support zone that we saw this whole period from about the summer of 2022 until the recent FTX flush. So obviously a lot of this is dependent on what the rest of the crypto space does. And although there are extreme signs of bullishness, we still have to be aware that we could potentially get another run-up scenario, especially since we are going to be due on a lot of crypto charts for a little bit of pullback and retracement. So hopefully that doesn't end up like what we saw after August of 2022. But nonetheless, it is still a possibility that we could see resistance over the next couple of weeks and actually retracing back down to test some of these lower lows. And hopefully in that instance, maintaining a higher low. And so on the longer term chart, the bulls still have plenty to prove. So definitely no signs of flipping this just yet. But because we know that we actually have currently broken the previous trend high on this weekly bounce before pulling back to set our low, we know that we are starting to shift the trend in favor of the bulls on the weekly chart. And so that's why it is going to be extremely important to actually retrace and confirm a higher low and then test that resistance point once again. that type of move makes up the strongest market when we do see more upside, because otherwise, if we just have continuous upside without actually selling a retrace and confirming a low of support, that's pretty much the conditions that just lead to extreme blow off tops, and then we have extreme retracements just as fast that lead to lower lows. Now, the VeChain Foundation has actually announced that they're going to be implementing a type of governance trying to decentralize the chain a little bit more. So hopefully this will be a benefit and a good sign for future growth and partnerships coming in, especially since we have seen new partnerships recently like Samsung and Mercedes-Benz. So this is always the type of direction as far as fundamentals go. So hopefully the VeChain Foundation can implement it and execute it better than, for example, the Algorand Foundation's doing with their governance. So flipping over now into the 2-day chart, very nice break bullish on top of this 50-period EMA. So very nice curvature on the bottom on these lower EMAs, indicating that they're likely going to be trending to the upside to flip bullish. And so if we actually flip over into the daily chart right now, looking at the EMAs for that, we've already had a bullish cross above the 12 and the 26. So now it's just a matter of the 12 crossing on top of the 50, and then also following that, the 26 crossing on top of the 50. Then we will be in a completely bullish formation then, which we actually haven't seen since prior, just before the big COVID flush back in November, which obviously did create the Black Swan event to get a lot of these lower lows in prices. However, conditions are looking a lot better on the strength of this current bullish move, as well as the strength of a lot of other financial sectors. So I think overall, especially after being so extreme and finding these lows, this is going to be a little bit more of a bullish setup, allowing their retracement to happen and actually backtest some of these EMAs when they do flip bullish. So target for that's pretty much going to come in right at about 1.8, which if we actually look at a Fibonacci retracement from the low to the current price, we can go ahead and look at the 38.2 as being 1.83. So that's the price level for retracement if we do kick off of that level. Now, if we do retrace to the 50, for example, we're going to be looking at about 1.73, which could also line up with where these EMAs are. Personally, I think we're more likely to test the 38.2, and that's also a better indication for a little bit further upside growth to see new higher highs from that. The best type of retracements typically always are, though, consolidation that actually do get a little bit tightening of a wedge, confirm some of these lower supports, and then ultimately allow the bulls to take a break, allow the technicals such as the RSI to cool down, and then that's when we see our next big bullish growth cycle. Because kind of like what you see, this amount of time spending this overall price level as resistance, coming in just shy of 2 cents at 1.93, because we spent so much time confirming it as resistance and now just blew through it, it would be of benefit to be able to confirm this now over a long period of time as a longer term support level. Now, one of the things that I do want to look at is that when we talk about curvature and parabolic type moves like this, typically upside targets after consolidation and a retracement are based on the depth of this bull. So if we actually look at based on the resistance point to a breakout from the current price, that would put us at about 2.34 cents. So from current prices would actually have about a 17% upside. And if we zoom out, let's go ahead and look at that in terms of a technical target as well. So you can see that that's pretty much the heart line for this big period of overall sideways trading. So we would expect this to be a pretty big, strong resistance point as well. So that does mean that that is going to be a pretty big technical target. So if we do confirm supports and hold those higher lows, then we are going to be looking upside towards that target of about 2.34 cents. Now, I want to actually pull up the daily volume here just to talk about it once again, because this is always a very good and strong sign of growth to the upside. But like we said, we do still have to be mindful of a little bit more of this parabolic move, especially when we do look at some of these other indicators right now, like the RSI for the day, coming in over the 70 line at 75.04. We also have the stochastic RSI extremely smashed up against the 100 line. And then also we have the Connors RSI right now at 98.24. And so if we actually zoom out on a lot of these signals, then we can see that we get a very good indication of tops coming in from that. So for example, the last time we've seen the daily RSI this big was actually back in August of 2022, after coming off the bottom, which then after that did pretty much confirm a top, and that's what allowed the price to retrace. So even in that instance, the RSI only got to a daily close of 75.13 compared to where we are right now at 75.04. So very close, pretty much right on line. And then if we also look at the previous time that actually happened, again, it was another very nice indication of what was going to happen back in April of 2022. So overbought RSI, huge top that ultimately led for about a week sideways until we retraced. And same sort of thing as well, again, when we talk about timeline for the previous move, is that once we actually topped out, and I apologize if this is a little bit tougher to see since it's a little bit smaller, we didn't have an immediate retracement. We actually had several days up at the top, confirmed resistance, didn't really see much direction going, and then we saw that retracement. But so anyway, let's keep looking at previous overextended indications. So last time before that, we actually had an overextension above the day was back in November 2021 when the rest of the crypto space was peaking. After that pulled back. So as you can see, RSI for that on the daily only got to 72.41. So definitely not even as strong as what we've seen previously. Next time before that, August 2021, overextended. Didn't necessarily make the trend high since we did see another upside, but ultimately ended up pulling back pretty significantly, which did end up being a total for a pullback of about 43%. And then obviously we can look into the big bull cycle, all the times we've been overbought. But so one of the big things to kind of highlight and point out is that when we talk about this RSI and we actually look at the oversold indicators, typically we get a little bit more of a time period between when we do get oversold and then overbought. So for example, previously we were looking at about 66 days. And then even on this most recent time prior to what we're seeing, we're looking at about 88 days. So compare that to what we're seeing now when we did get oversold to now overbought 25 days. So about less than half the time. So that much price gain in that short of a time is a pretty big indication to me that things are extremely euphoric and optimistic right now. And sometimes we do end up finding the signals not to be as reliable when we do start entering bullish cycles. But right now I'm still very reliant on the fact that such a euphoric move in such a short period of time is not going to be sustainable without a first retracement, testing some lower supports and actually allowing this price action that we've seen for the last 2 weeks to pretty much cool down. But as always, not financial advice, and obviously it could be right or wrong. That's just my personal analysis based on what I'm seeing from the chart right now and what I'm expecting based for the overall crypto space. Would love to know everyone's thoughts down in the comment sections below. Hope you enjoyed this show today. If you did, please hit that thumbs up, like, and subscribe button. Do appreciate you staying with me to the end. All the support does mean so much, and I greatly appreciate it. Thank you so much. Take care, and I will see you back in the next video.